Tracy Amigos, former football coaches turned insurance agents to talk about Texas Aggie football.
All right, guys. So welcome to episode 13 of the Trace Amigos podcast. Me and Seth and Mark are all former high school coaches. And this week, man, it's a big week. Playing the T-Sips from Austin. First time in 12 years. First time in the SEC. A lot of big things going on this week. And we were fortunate enough to get Mr. Jamar Toombs to join us for this podcast just for a quick bit. If you're not familiar with him, do a Google search because you obviously haven't been following A&M football that long. It's a cool connection because not only he played for A&M, obviously, but all three of us coached in the Northeast Texas area, and he is a graduate of Kilgore High School here in Northeast Texas before he went down to A&M. So kind of a cool connection there as well. But one thing I wanted to shout out, I was doing some searches and things. Definitely want to encourage everybody to go, and I'll let Jamar talk about it a little bit more. But Aggie Athletics did a special on him back in the spring called Promise Kept, about Jamar going back to school, finishing his degree, and what that meant for him, and some of the things that he had done and made promises in his past or whatnot. And I'll let Jamar talk about that when we get to that point. But just want to encourage people to watch that and kind of get a little insight into him. But man, the one thing, and I'll let Seth pull it up, I forgot about, because you're not that much older than me, but a couple years older than me, and your 2000 year when we played in the Independence Bowl, the old Snow Bowl. Tell us about that game and the craziness of that, because I went back and looked, man, they rode you hard that game, man. 35 carries, good night of mercy.
Yeah, funny thing, man, is before the game started, there was no snow on the field. Like, we didn't know it was
Really?
snow.
Yeah.
The field was clear. We went in right before the game, and when we came out, it was snowing. And by halftime, the field was covered. You should see Coach Slocum's hat. His bill of his hat was covered with snow.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I got a clip here we can play.
Man, it was the last game I played in an A&M uniform. And the reason I like that game so much is because the last time I touched the ball, I scored a touchdown. It was the first play of overtime.
That's a good way to end your career, isn't it?
Yeah, good way to end it. But I had like 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, but sucky part about it is they got the extra point blocked and ran it back. So when they scored on the next possession, that was the 2 points that beat us.
Yeah, well, you can see here, we pulled up, I think it was the first quarter, one of your big runs here. You can see the snow on the ground and just that physical nature of your running, and you just carrying folks with you, man. You were a big physical guy, and they need to buy tickets for the ride. You just took them on there. That was a thing for you.
That's G lead. That's G lead out of I formation.
There you go.
That's nice, man.
Go. Well, man, before I kick it off to Mark and Seth and let them ask you some questions, just tell me what you got going on now. I feel bad. The first time I text you, it took you a little while to respond. At first, I was like, well, maybe he's trying to figure out who the heck I am, or why is this random guy texting me or whatever. And then I realized when you told me you lived in Seattle, I was like, well, shoot, I texted him at like 5 a.m. or something. Why am I texting that guy that early?
Yeah, I moved to Seattle, man, in the beginning of August.
Okay.
After I had graduated, I just couldn't find the type of job opportunities I wanted to in Texas that were going to pay me the kind of money I wanted to make. So I had a friend that told me I'd come up here. They had a lot of good opportunities, and so I've been up here, and right now I work in traffic management, but I'm looking forward to getting into some other stuff. Like, I'm just still kind of finding my way around here a little bit. Like I said, I've only been here like 3 months. It's pretty cool up here, man. I hate the weather. I mean, it rains a lot, and it gets cold way too early. Like, y'all down there in Texas still got warm weather, and like, I'm waking up every morning at 35 degrees. So.
Woo! Yeah, that's the one thing I have heard about that part. I've never been to that part of the country, but just how much it rains is the one thing I've always heard. But Seth, what you got? You want to ask Mr. Toombs while we got him on here?
Well, I do got to ask, what do you remember about the day-to-day whenever you were a student athlete? Because I think sometimes one of the things we like to portray on here is how intense it is to be a Division I college football player. Like, how many hours a week would you estimate was dedicated towards that in the season? would you estimate?
Well, our slogan would, make sure that we were very well prepared as far as, not losing strength and stuff because, put in a lot of work during the off season. And when I went to school, I actually, 2 days after I graduated high school, I went down there and started working out, not knowing that I was going to end up playing my freshman year, but, I just wanted to be prepared. We had, you had to get a workout in at least on a Monday or Tuesday, whether it be in the morning or afternoon, before we started practice that week. And after practices, we all had study halls and stuff like that. So you didn't have a lot of time for social life or whatever. I mean, if you did, it was a late night social life.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, we practiced at least 3.5 hours with and then another hour of meeting after practice, stuff like that. So it was pretty hard, man, pretty intense.
That's
But
so.
I mean, like I said, for what we were trying to do, and I said especially that '98 season there, had a lot of big senior leadership. That was the year I played with Dat Wynn. Dan Campbell was a senior that year, and Rich Cody, Warwick Holman, Randy McCowan was a junior. He ended up stepping in being the quarterback that year that we went to win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I just think that sometimes that's lost on the average viewer. It's not something that's talked about a whole lot. I always want to talk about, hey, what do you remember about, this or that? But man, sometimes just understanding the grind is pretty important as far as getting that message out. Another question I'd like to ask is, how different was the terminology? So like from a coaching standpoint, your high school offense you played in, when you made that jump, was it a huge jump as far as terminology, learning the offense and all of that? Was that significantly more difficult, or was it pretty similar to what you experienced in high school?
Pretty similar. My coach at Kilgore, Coach Mike Valerie, and offensive coordinator Kenny Farrow. Kenny Farrow came from coaching at LSU. So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he had plays that were kind of similar to what I ended up doing in college. So we would have a formation. You'd have a motion set in there, or if it was protection, it'd be a number. Pretty much pretty easy because the first part of the play, I know what I was supposed to do. Then, the second part of the play, the receivers or the linemen knew what they were supposed to do. So it wasn't very hard as figuring out where I need to line up at, what's my assignment, and stuff like that. So like I said, I was pretty prepared in high school.
Yeah, I was going to jump in just talking from a coach's standpoint. I used to have that talk with athletes as well. These kids think they want to play college ball, and some of them are good enough to go that D1 where that's kind of avenue. They don't even really have to pursue that hard at the high school level because they're that talented. Those opportunities are going to come to them. But some of these other athletes you coach, they would be wanting it so bad. And I always would question, do you understand what you're going to sign up for if you get that opportunity? They're going to pay for your school. And this is before NIL. It's a much better deal for the athletes now as far as financially than it was during your day. But they're going to pay for your school, but you're going to earn that. I mean, like you said, they expect a lot out of you. There's workouts. There's film room. There's study hall. There's classes you need to be at. There's practice you need to be at. And so that's 100% correct on that.
If you want to know, that's what we called it. They own you, basically.
Yes.
I mean, they got you when you're there, man. It's a lot of hours.
I can believe it. Yeah.
So, Mark, what
I said it's a lot more dedication, not as much on as the field because that comes easy to kids. Like I said, you want to play football, but how much do you want to go to school and understand? Like you got to understand that they're giving you a scholarship to play football, but if you can't pass the classes and stay a student and stay enrolled, then you're not going to be there long.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mark, what you got for him, boss?
I just, I kind of piggyback a little bit on what Seth said. So I'm here in East Texas. I graduated from Carthage High School. I know you're familiar with Carthage, but it's a little different now. Carthage is a powerhouse. Back in your day, you probably kind of owned us a little bit. Tell me about.
I'll tell you now, we didn't lose the Carthage back when I played.
Trust me.
Hey, what's
100.
funny is you say that. I look, while I'm doing some Google searches trying to pull some stuff up, you remember you probably remember this, for a very short time, there was a online news sports provider for East Texas Sports, ETSN. Do you remember that, Mark?
Yeah, I know.
And when we played Kilgore in the state championship in 2013, they reached out to you at some point and got a little statement they put in the article about that game, and I thought that was funny when I was looking it up.
Yeah. No, anyway, I'm just gonna say, like, tell us about how kind of like playing in we call it Beast Texas now. It's always been that. Even back in your day with Henderson, Kilgore, Carthage, those were some battles, although we fell short on many of those. But just how the level of athlete in East Texas and how that kind of prepared you. Do you think it helped hurt when you went to big time D1 football?
I know that it helped. Like when I was down there at school, there was me and Brian Gamble. He was from a little small town, Alto.
I know.
We were the only East Texas people. So, I was trying to represent hard. I got a bunch of Houston people, Dallas people. These kids are coming from these big schools. And I used to tell them, I'm like, look, man, I said, if y'all ain't know nothing about that red dirt up there in East Texas, then y'all don't know nothing about no football.
Right.
Like, it was very tough. We played tough schedules back then. We played against Mount Pleasant, Nacogdoches, even Liberty Island was good.
Yeah.
And they all had good players that all ended up going to big schools. I remember from Mount Pleasant, Chris Campbell, he went to Miami. He tragically passed away in the car accident right before the draft. Nacogdoches had I think his name was Pat Hughes. He went to Florida State. And then Carthage was always a big, I used to hate them because their shoulder pads always looked too big, made them look way bigger than they were, or whatever. But I grew up, like I was born in Longview, and I grew up going to Pine Tree High School before I transferred over to Kilgore by spring break my sophomore year. Like I said, we won district the 2 years I was there, and got to the third round my junior year and second round my senior year. Both of years I felt like we had a good enough team to win or whatever, but like I said, when you start moving out, when you get second round and beyond, you start playing some really good teams. The thing I hate about the playoffs now, that the way it is now, is that it always seems like it's set up for two East Texas teams to knock each other out before they can go to state.
Yeah, that's happening this weekend.
That's happening this weekend. Carthage and Pleasant Grove are playing.
Yeah, that's the whole
and it's either one. If they just split them and sent one Division III, one Division IV,
Yeah. That's all. I hate that, man, because it's like they're trying to weed out our team because they know we're gonna kick ass when we get down there and start playing.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you jumping on here, and I appreciate you being a part of this. This is obviously a big game for Aggie fans, the whole deal this week, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on here with us, and pray nothing but good things for you up there in Seattle. Selfishly, I kind of hope maybe you find something back here in Texas that'll match your pay scale and what you want to do there, but wish nothing but the best of you, man.
I appreciate it, man. I really hope that, A&M can pull this out. Like, all these years of not playing Texas, I know these kids don't know about the rivalry like we know about.
They're about to find out.
Yeah. Because it's died down on the field, but, like, if you look at it, our song is dedicated to beating Texas.
Yes.
I think about, like, when I graduated in May, I looked at some of those kids next to me and I said, none of y'all have ever been to a Texas A&M Texas football game. I said, and we're over here sawing horns off.
Y'all don't even know what that's about.
That's a good point.
Y'all don't even know what that's about.
That's a good point.
I laughed so hard at it, man. I was like, well, this will be good, I guess, for those classes that missed it during this 12 years that we hadn't played them.
Yeah.
And moving on forward, I really thought, that the SEC would give Texas a harder schedule in their first year in. They got a really cake schedule this year.
They gave it to Oklahoma. They gave it to Oklahoma.
To say Oklahoma's wondering what they did.
They had an orange schedule Oklahoma. Yeah. I said, we had to take all the lumps coming in. I feel like I need to take that.
That's right. Yeah. Now they definitely got an easy start to their time in the SEC, no doubt about that. But man, I appreciate it. If we can ever do anything here at Tres Amigos to help you out, let us know, man. But wish you nothing but the best up there in Seattle, and hopefully we see you back here in the Piney Woods soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for y'all having me on.
Thank you, Jamar.
Thanks.
Yeah, my secretary was making fun of me. I watched that whole game today.
I've done it
And then I
before.
made fun of Jordan. Was it last year that Independence Bowl was like stupid cold? It was like 4 degrees, or maybe it was the year before.
Nothing like that.
No, but he went over there by himself to watch the game that day when it was 4 degrees, because his theory was, you can get tickets for $4. I'm like, okay, knock yourself out, buddy. He said, I didn't make it out of the second quarter. My hands were froze solid.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I was on a date with my wife before we were married, and I lived in Roanoke, just north of Keller, and we drove to my buddy's house. He lived over by Valley Ranch in Irving, and it was like already up there. It was already sleeting and snowing, and I was like, yeah, we can make it. There's a party at my buddy's house, and we made it, but man, did we barely make it. I was staying the night with them and sleep on the couch because New Year's Eve, and we watched the game. We got there, like, I listened to it in the radio, and I think we got there right at halftime and watched the rest of the game. But man, it was unbelievable. I'll never forget that night because I drove in that. It had already hit Dallas before it hit Shreveport.
Me and my little brother went out at halftime of that game and tackled each other in the snow with the football for about 30 straight minutes, trying to imitate Jamar, just to, 150 pounds less or more.
And not nearly as athletic, yeah.
Much slower and smaller version of it.
Smaller. I mean, it's the greatest combo ever.
He had a big run against OU one year.
Man, that's one of the loudest Kyle Field moments I think that's ever happened, was that run against OU. Yeah,
unbelievable.
I do like how you recognize that, that the youth, the last 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
We're in a territory where these kids don't have a memory of it, who are going to college right now. They're gonna get on board quick once they do.
I was talking to Jackson yesterday about me going to the game, and I told him the last Texas A&M game I went to was 1987 for the right to go to the Cotton Bowl. Bucky Richardson brings us back late. We score, win 20-13, and it was a record crowd at that time, a little over 87,000 at Kyle Field, and it was just an unbelievable night. You remember you had to go, when you were on the second deck, you had to walk those.
Yeah.
It took us 45 minutes to get from the second deck to the front deck because you had to stop and saw Varsity's horns up. I was just singing it. And I remember we had parked way off campus, and we had to go by the Sol Ross statue, and they had already stuffed cotton in his hand where his hand's leaning on the thing. It was a wild weekend, just unbelievable.
Well, so now we're going to talk about the last game. I think we all had our frustrations and some of us still have hair to pull out, but I wasn't going to point fingers, Mark. I wasn't going to point no fingers.
Mark,
right.
I'm not far. I'm trying to catch you, Mark. I'm still pretty far behind, but I'm on the race. So,
I've probably taken this loss better than anybody in Aggie land, just because kind of how it went down and then kind of what I was thinking going in, because the more math I did on it, I was like, a 3-team Aggie team's not making it. So we beat Auburn, we beat Texas, and somehow we lose to Georgia in the championship, or Alabama at that point. It could have been Alabama. We're not getting in. And so we're going to have to win out.
Well, I'll tell you this. If Saturday didn't prove that it doesn't matter who you're a fan of, you better not bet the house on anybody right now.
Yeah, that's
right. Who saw Alabama going up there and laying an egg at OU? I mean,
somebody on another show said it was an SEC guy, obviously, and he said, look, night games on the road are extremely hard to win regardless of your opponent. And I said, well, it's good because I think there's a night game this week at Kyle Fields.
That's right. That's right. Lane Kiffin responded to Coach Elko about it on Twitter, and he said, look up the stats, Coach. Look up the quarterback stats on a day game versus a night game on the road and get back to me. Basically something like that. And I haven't had the chance to look those stats up yet. I don't even know how to figure them out, but I piqued my interest.
I was thinking, Alabama's got to kind of go going again. That they've settled in. Jalen Milroy and my boy Kip Lewis from Carthage, Texas, got another pick 6 on this week.
He had something to say about it, no doubt. I know a lot of people are saying that this is, like college football, I've heard this term, it's down, like it's just down across the board, but I think this is the way it is. I think it's going to be like this from now on.
Now that you have the transfer
right.
portal, nobody can lock up all the talent for 3 or 4 years. At any given year, like even the guy in Nebraska said, dude, I don't want anybody transferring, but the reality is I got 30 or 50 guys that are going to transfer this year. As much as I wish they would stay here and develop, they know they can go somewhere else right now and play.
And that's where I think that you're going to start to see, which is kind of, for us, I think it's cool, is that coaching and scheme and culture has always mattered. It's only going to matter more because you can't stack talent to offset those things as much, if that makes sense. That's why you see an Army and a Navy, and 3 years into this transfer portal era, almost like, what are there, one or two losses between them, and they are having people transfer, and they do have a good culture, and they're playing in the same scheme and system. And so I think if you can find a way to do that going forward, which I think Coach Elko is very much trying to do, you get a leg up, you get an edge over. And I think that's why some people I've heard, like, why didn't we pick an OC who knew how to throw the ball better than we are, even though we're the number one scoring offense in the SEC. We'll look it up. It's crazy, even with the faults. But it's because I think Coach Elko believes that the run game raises your floor. I think everything you do to raise your floor is what is going to win consistently now versus just saying, let's just go stack this room full of 5-stars and then we'll redshirt them. And then the Saban way is gone. You ain't doing that anymore. You might as well do it. Let's take care of all the unvariables.
Before we get into the good, bad, and ugly on the offense, man, I just want to take a second because I sent Seth a text earlier. I hadn't been keeping up. Usually I'm pretty adamant about checking how many views we have on YouTube and all those things. I just want to thank anybody that's listening. I was blown away that we had 600 views on last week's podcast on YouTube. I don't know about Spotify and those other things. Seth kind of keeps up with those and lets me know. I just want to thank people for listening. It blows my mind. I was thinking back. I know it's the last regular season game of the year. Hopefully we've got a SEC championship and playoffs to deal with, but we'll worry about that. But, man, I'll just be honest. I've enjoyed this season doing this, and I can't believe we've got over 600 people wanting to watch us. I can't believe we've had Reggie McNeil and Jamar Toombs when I was a kid. Those guys were guys I loved to watch on TV and thought they were just unbelievable. So for guys of that magnitude to come on here and cut it up with us for a little bit, man, it's been a fun ride. But the good, the bad, and the ugly on the offense. The good, man, I'm going to brag on our quarterback. Threw for that, 297. It would have been 300 if we don't drop the last pass.
Hey, man, I'll say the biggest thing about, not only did I see that he's like the 12th rated quarterback in the nation right now, but the moment was not bigger than him. As big as that moment got, even down to the last, it was never been, that kid is put together well.
Well, and here's what I'm going to say. He's part of my good, over 300 yards, or nearly 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. And, man, I remember after the LSU game, everybody said, well, he can run, but can he pass? Dude, the last 2 weeks, he can sling it. He can spin it, man. And does he need to get better in certain situations? Absolutely. He's a daggum redshirt freshman. But, man, you can see that kid get better every daggum week. He's still, you talk about at the floor, if you think he's probably at his floor right now. He's only going to continue to get better and better and better. So, really excited about him. Thought he had a great game. I do like how we started incorporating Bussy more. Not necessarily the Wildcats fine, whatever, but, we had him in the backfield. We had him split out wide. We seem to finally start. I hate that we're 11 games into the season now before I feel like we're really incorporating him. Like, I get it. He was a freshman earlier, but I would have wanted to see this type of stuff around game 6 or 7, not game 11. And then I'm going to show one play under the good because this as a former offensive coach, I absolutely love this design and this play, and I wish we would incorporate it more. This is going to be a power read by the quarterback with a jet sweep motion. So you can give that jet if you want. And what that does is that pulls this number 9 out of there. And actually the right guard doesn't even block it correctly. But you can see how the motion pulls this 9 out of here and it opens up wide. He's one-on-one with that safety. See where that 9's going because he sees the lead backer or the lead blocker with the running back, sees the jet sweep coming. He's out there. If 55 folds up in here where he should have, this is even more open because this guy's already taken himself out of the play, and now he can get behind him on the safety, and he probably houses it. But
hey, Matt, do you think that that's a reaction to he knows he's got play side backer versus just feeling it? Let that
yeah,
play?
no, he's probably reading 9, at
Yeah.
this point. But it's just one of those things. And I feel like if we would run this more, he would have a better feel of that. But
Right.
we haven't run this a whole lot. And I wish, this is one thing I wish I would like to see us do a little bit more. Because as Seth said on the last podcast, with Owens being out, Moss being out, number 10 is our next best running threat. He's going to be running back too. Okay. So, and I know we can't afford to lose him. I know that we're in a 1-game season right now. Every game is a 1-game season. And I want to see us incorporate his running a little bit more in actual designed runs like this.
And Matt,
I
also
really like this play.
we've shown glimpses of it here
Yep.
and there, but I always felt like this is Marcel's best play. This forces a defense. When you show this, we used to just call it jet G read because they incorporate the G. And you have to split your defense in half, and you have to have backside players that when they get all that jet motion and the pull. So what our backside linebacker would do, as soon as that guard pulled on the jet motion away, he would fill that hole. But they don't even
You're
have
talking
that.
about this guy out here.
No, I'm talking about a backside guy. See, they've got their guy on the edge.
You talking? Okay,
He
I
would
got you.
stack him.
I got
he did jet motion, he would stack behind the end and then
He
fill
would be
in.
here.
Right.
Got you.
Listener
He
right
would
there.
become a fold player, and you have to do that. And not enough people do that because you have to play the jet with other people, and you have to have somebody right there that's unblockable.
Yep. But no, that's Reed was my good. I like to see Bussy getting involved more. I hope we keep building on that over the next few games. But yeah, that was my good. We'll get to the bad and ugly in a little bit. But Seth, what do you got for good on offense, boss?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saving my film clips for defense just so we don't do a 3-hour podcast. But so, like,
Well, we're going to wait now and talk about defense a lot.
I know, yeah. So in conference play, we are the number 1 scoring offense. That blew my mind but it is what it is. I mean, this isn't some fake thing. This is exactly what Klein was hired to do: run the ball with success, have an elite red zone offense. Are there some calls that every game, I guarantee you Auburn's fans probably have a problem with some of Hugh Freeze's calls in that game. Go ahead, Mark.
Some of those calls are, and I don't want to be Jimbo here, but some of those calls sometimes you think they're a bad call and it's a bad check, or one guy doesn't run the play right, or there's a lot of reasons why calls look bad.
So it's like the guy that calls the hit and run to get the time run and scoring position, and the batter doesn't swing, and they throw out the runner, and then the coach goes, then the fans go, "Good job, way to try to steal there, moron." Yeah,
exactly right. Now, and I get it, like, you know, and with the, I have to go back to, I know the speed option into the boundary, something that people, I was notified that was a check, well, I wasn't notified in concrete terms, but with this podcast being the way it is, I have made some acquaintances who tell me things that Gen Pop may not know, and some of the things that happened late were checks where Marcel made the wrong check.
Okay,
However,
Smith, but here's my argument to that. We have not run speed option all year. Why is that even a check? Why is that even a check?
Agree.
Little, I remember being at North Texas and we were down 14-7 to Pat Tillman's Arizona State, and we ran speed option on the goal line and fumbled it, and they're All-American safety.
Yeah. It happens.
Learn speed option out of spread. We know how to defend it. Don't run it.
Well,
Great,
I don't mind the speed option, but it was a critical play in the game.
Into the boundary.
And it's into the back, but it's and we have not literally, if you go back and watch 11 games, there's not one other time all season we've run speed option.
In your hat on something like that for sure. You know, some people said the same thing about it. I'm not meaning to, but I'm coming back around to my good, I promise. I know some people, I'd seen some things on Twitter and various things griping about the play call that Amari dropped the pass on. But to me, that's less of a problem than speed option, just because that was just a tricky way of running a sprint out fast, right?
If he catches that ball, it's wonderful. He was open. It wasn't like the play didn't work.
I mean, there was a way to get the quarterback rolling to the right with a little bit of wash at the front of it. That's all it was. It was nothing special. So anyway, but what I was going back to the good was, yes, even though Reed is still growing pains, we are watching this kid progress right in front of our eyes. And one of the things, if you listen to his interviews, you can tell, and everything you can dig and see about, he has elite intangibles. He has an elite way of going about his business. And to me, he's got enough talent that you can see it. I mean, you can see this kid being a household name for A&M. But if you tell me he has had those elite intangibles, I'm all good with this kid. I think they made the right decision. Obviously, they made it a little too late. I don't envy Colin Klein's position he was put into either. Where Coach Elko's position last spring, you know what I mean? Whenever he was trying to hold the roster together, people say, well, you should have done this, should have done that. Oh, our most paid person on the whole roster is sitting the bench. Well, hey, look, first year for almost all programs in this situation are going to be like that. There's going to be a ton of stuff that will get cleaned up. I feel like it's almost like you have to be a year zero. And if we're in year zero playing for the conference championship, and we're the number one scoring offense in conference for the SEC I'm saying that's pretty doggone good. That's pretty doggone good, right?
Here's what I'll tell you. Everybody, if you ask anybody that's in our age gap, who's the greatest coach you've ever seen coach in college, every one of them's going to say Saban, right? Okay. And where was he best at? At Alabama. His first year at Alabama, he was 6-6. He wasn't in this position. So yes, are there times where you can question coaching decisions, all those things? Absolutely, and we're going to do that. Mark and Seth got a huge amount of stuff on the defensive side today, but at the same time, I don't think we have the wrong guys in charge.
No, absolutely not.
I think they're still the right coaches, but
I'll say this, Matt, and this is just from looking at it. And this goes to another point with NIL and the differences in NIL. The way you build a college program is you have 3 or 4 coaches on your staff, and they may not be great technician coaches, but they're freaking phenomenal recruiters.
yes,
And the day of that guy is going away because the rosters are leveling out. You're going to have guys that can get your position better. You can't just be a rah-rah guy.
That's right.
After wide receiver and recruit your can off. Because you're gonna have to have guys that can coach because the levels of rosters are a lot more equal. You don't have all, Saban even had the luxury a little bit of having that big Alabama name and backing and getting all the, their third string guy could have started for, in the Big 12 everywhere.
yes.
You're gonna have to have guys that can develop players because you're gonna have to recruit a few out of high school. You're gonna have to pick off, 4 or 5 out of the transfer portal at key positions. And then you're going to have to develop. What made Saban so great was he may be one of the best developmental coaches of all time on the defensive side. Nobody could develop defensive backs better than Saban. And the thing was, and this is what people don't know unless you knew one of these guys, he fired assistant coaches like they were crazy. He was hard on him. People didn't like working for him. Nobody came from Michigan State to LSU with him. He's hard on his coaches because he demands that you coach your can off and know what you're doing. And that's what made him successful. I think Elko, I said all of that to say this. There might be some changes within the position staff at A&M in the offseason. Just
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
It's going to be about development, guys that can develop their position.
Yep. All right, so moving on to the bad. Me and Seth were texting between the game. The first half, offensive play calling. We just bragged last week about how we brought back the naked and the boots, and we ran some screens, and we were getting the tight ends involved. The first half was nothing but drop back, 4 wide receivers. That's not what we've hung our hat. I don't really understand what we were doing that first half. I don't know if we saw something. I don't know, but I didn't like it. I like in the second half we went back to the nakeds and the boots and the screens and And it was funny, me and Seth were talking, and I'm like, where's Theo? And then we throw the ball to Theo, and he drops the ball, and I'm like, okay. But it felt like the first half was just a different offensive scheme, and I think we've all discussed where Klein's comfortable and what he's comfortable calling, and I don't really know. Sometimes I feel like he tries to expand on that and maybe add things that aren't natural to him, and he doesn't feel. And if I was Elko, I'd be like, Klein, just be yourself, man. Stick to what you feel comfortable calling. Because if you're comfortable calling it, the kids are going to be comfortable running it, and it's going to look a lot better. And that would be my encouragement to them. But that was my bad. The first half offensive scheme, just not my cup of tea. If you pull up the first, and I'm going to be honest, Seth, you can tell me I'm crazy. I don't like RPO where when you're faking the handoff or potentially handing it off and you're reading the player and then you flip your hips and throw where your eyes have not been. Okay? I don't like it. And so you'll see here, and we'll show twice. Once it didn't work, once it did. He turns his butt to the top side of the field, okay? And he's reading this safety, and then he throws it, okay?
It's dangerous.
I would rather have the back on the same side, so I'm reading that safety on the side that does that make sense to everybody? Now.
Even pistol, just run it out of the pistol.
Yes. Now, technically, I guess the guy's open. It's an incomplete, nobody hurt. And the next time they run it, if you go to the next clip, it's the same philosophy. He's just doing it on the other side. So here he's going to fake the handoff with his butt to our side of the field. And then he throws it and it goes to the house. So, I'm criticizing a play that worked once and didn't work once. I just don't like the philosophy of running an RPO when your eyes aren't where you're going to throw it. To me, the whole idea of an RPO is I'm going to be able to have my eyes on that backer, that safety, or whoever I'm reading there the whole time. And if he stays back, then I'm going to hand it. And if he steps up, then I can pull it and throw it. When you do it with your butt to it, it makes it scary to me.
Two differences in these throws. This is a too high shell with the strong safety coming down and run support on the first one. Then they roll into a single high safety here.
Yeah.
So it gives them a clean window. The window wasn't clean because in the first clip, that's
safety.
So they're spinning down with jet motion. That's what he didn't have before.
Yeah.
They're going away from that jet motion and that cleaned that play up.
I get it. I just and maybe that's the difference between high school and Division I, but having your back to where you're going to end up throwing it potentially, it just scares me. So
against man free, it worked well. Against a quarters flat feet read, it did not work well because that guy was in the window. Because on the first they brought the safety into the play with the play
with the motion. Yeah, with the motion. Yeah,
and
I got you.
That's what hurt him. See, he's in run support. See, He came down just in run support. He's not really spinning down as much as he is. He's coming off the fake, so they brought him to the play.
Yeah.
In the other one, they didn't. It it worked out as a better defense to run it against.
What that might be, and this is honestly just either way, just to talk about last week. If you fast forward to the part we talked about, this is the exact same scheme they tried to do with Ja'Day Walker out of the slot, and he just ran the route so poorly. I'll give Noah some credit here. He ran it with high IQ. He knew what the objective of the route was supposed to be. Get inside, beat him inside, but then get back vertical and understand that you're going to have to keep running at some point. You don't just quit and assume it's a handoff. Like you're not making a read. You run your route. You know what I mean? Like you're not reading it. So anyway, I will give Noah credit on that because the wide receiver clan did play a lot better in this game. And as you mentioned, my only bad was the tight end group in this game. They really didn't add much to the equation in the pass for catching game. It was a bad, and I think both of these talk about personnel and the coaching staff. I think the pass catching personnel this offseason will be radically different. A lot of these guys are seniors too, so it's going to change either way. But I have a feeling there will be a lot of people fighting for their jobs next year who do come back. So,
and I love Theo. I'm still a fan of Theo, even though he dropped that ball. And I'm not going to ask you to pull up the clip. But that ball that Reed threw on that was
best ball of the year.
Freaking believable. He dropped it in. I mean, he couldn't have ran over there and he just floated it right over the defender and in front of the safety. It was just a thing of beauty. But anyway.
And he has had a ton of trouble with the touch pass in general.
Yes.
Like one ball, Marcel can throw as good of a one ball as I've seen anybody throw in an Aggie uniform, but the 2 and the 3 ball are the ones he struggled with. And that was one of those, 2 ball especially, and that was beautiful. It was so well done. So,
by the way,
you can tell he's been working on it. You can tell he has been drilling that 2 and 3 ball throw.
And I'll just tell you this, the quarterback we're facing this week may be the best 2 ball thrower in the nation.
He's really good at it. He's really dang good at it. Yeah,
we'll get to them in a minute. Okay.
Right.
So,
I've watched a lot of film on him.
The ugly for me, and it's something that I picked up coaching with Surratt down there. The one thing that Surratt was always going to be was physical. We were always going to be physical. It didn't matter if we were running 5 wide. Didn't matter if we were running with a fullback and 2 tight ends. You better be willing to be physical. And I just was very, very disappointed with our front line, our offensive line, and how physical they
Both sides.
were.
Both sides. Both
Yeah,
sides.
we'll talk about your side in a minute, but the offensive line side in the run game. Look, I know we don't have Moss and we don't have Owens, okay? And Daniels is not as big as those guys are, but dude, they've got to get a better push up front to give that kid a better chance. He's not, you're right, me and Mark text a little bit. He's not going to break some of the tackles that Moss would have run through. Agree. But that kid's doing as well as he can do, and I applaud that kid for how hard he plays. But 3.2 yards a carry is unacceptable against that team. And I'm not saying that we knew they had a good front. But we still should have had better than that. Like I said earlier, I want to see Marcel use more in the run game. Like Seth said last week, he's essentially our RB2. And then I showed the clip. I want to see some quarterback power read the rest of the season.
Absolutely.
I really, with the jet sweep. I don't like it with the running back, but I like it with the jet sweep. Get that backer out of there. But anyway, that's my ugly. So I'm going to kick it over to Mark and Seth for defense, because I think they've got a whole bunch of, I don't know how much good they got, but they got plenty of bad and ugly to talk about on that side of it. So Mark, Seth, tell us about the defense since Seth's going to the dark side today.
Hybridizing.
Dark side. So just a couple things. Sometimes, and I learned this too, probably at Carthage, just we were super successful, and every once in a while you take one on the chin, and your tendency tends to be like, oh my God, the sky is falling, and you have to kind of put all that away and just really address the film and what you saw. And so I went back and watched this game like 3 or 4 times. And so here's the deal. If I'm saying the good, the linebacker play, Scooby and York, those guys put on a freaking clinic. I promise you, the interception that we have, it's a pull-up, rollout situation. So play side backers got to go pull the quarterback up. Well, when York goes to pull the quarterback up, the guy's got a good angle on him to block him. And he decides that, by God, I'm just going to shoot it and get in this guy's face. He does a great job. The backside guy now has to change the whole field. Let's say I'm a low hole player. That's that backside guy. I'm low hole. I've got to get to the hash. If it's going this direction, I'm the farthest I can get. But when he rolls out, now I've got to carry that now to the numbers. And Scooby gets on his horse, tips that ball right to BJ. That's a clinic, guys. That is hard to teach. Number one, it's hard to teach the intangible that York does to go through that blocker to just disrupt. I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to pull him up. So I'm going to make him make a decision. He's either going to tuck it and run it, and we're going to tackle him for a 2-yard gain, or he's going to throw it right now because I'm going to make him, and that's what caused it. But they played with all night.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I can't believe I haven't seen a meme made out of it. But if you saw the sideline view, that ball hits off Scooby, he grabs his helmet, and he's like, oh, and then when he sees Mays catch it, he goes, oh, that was awesome.
Because he was just disappointed in making this up. But where he got to, guys, there's guys, they play in the NFL. The only guys that can do what he did from a backside linebacker position to get where he did on a flood concept rollout situation, those guys are NFL guys. That's the only guys that do it. And that piece of film right there will get him on an NFL team, if nothing else. In the middle of the game, the defense played really well. If you think about, we were down 21-0, but from that point all the way up till right after the speed option and we kicked the ball back to them, we had them. We had adjusted some things. Our eyes were getting better. We were making plays. D-line was doing some things. You know, we had their offense right before they punted it to us. We got the lead. We got them off the field. They looked like they couldn't run a play. They punted to us. We fumble a snap on first down. We end up running the speed option, and we kick it back to them, and then the wheels fell off again, and I think that's just the effort of coming back. But in the middle of the game, this defense showed what it can be, how to be able to put it together for 4 quarters. And so that leads right into the bad, and that is we started really slow. And this is the same thing we saw against South Carolina on the road. We cannot start a game this slow. You've got to get them off the field early. Our run support in our quarters look, whether it's quarter halves, and for you guys that aren't football guys, quarters means these these two, the corner and safety on this side, are playing a quarter of the field. They each got 25% deep, and then half would be one safety's got half the field, and we're going to roll a corner up, or straight quarters across the field. We're going to divide it corner, safety, safety, corner. They've each got a fourth of the deep field. In our quarters look, you're asking your guys, your safeties, the reason you play flat foot read quarters is when flow goes away, that backside safety who has no threat on run can fill backside B gap. He can be your cutback player. I mean, we won a state championship against Waco La Vega, one of the best zone teams ever, and our player of the game was our backside safety. He was unbelievable. But what happens with the A&M guys, they tend to only look in that B gap, and they bite on those short dig routes or curl routes, and then that safety goes deep. And I know
Got you a clip.
Yeah, so show that clip. Is this the first touchdown?
This is the first touchdown. Yeah.
Quarters beater. This is a quarters beater. You know, you can talk about Hugh Freeze all you want to. This is just quarters beaters. Right there. So he is a quarters player. He is responsible for the middle quarter. So from the middle of the field to halfway between the numbers and the hash.
Yeah, from about right here to about right there.
This deep area. But if you'll watch, his eyes are in the backfield because he
never come out. Watch, his eyes are right there the whole time.
I mean, just right now, notice him and Theo, or I always call him Theo, him and Ratliff have the same read on this play, essentially. They both got, look at Ratliff versus where he is, so we're toast right here.
I will say this, Seth, I think this is quarter halves, because look at Will sit down.
Yeah.
So that's like he's got a half, but he needs to be deeper than the deepest. This is the rule we tell him. If it's deeper than the deepest. And right now, he's not deeper than the deepest. And if you watch where he catches the ball. So there are two fallacies in this play. Number one, his eyes get him beat because he's going to catch the ball in my quarter now. And he knows it. Look, he's got the old crap turn. You know, it's a field turn that we ask the safeties and corners to make. That's the old crap turn. And the other thing is butt to the sideline quarter. So go back to the start of can you go back to the start of the play?
Absolutely. Let this play out.
This is a quarters beater. Okay, so right here, hold it. So if you look at it right now, are they in quarters? Are they spinning down? This is the question that a college coach, a college quarterback has to answer. But when they run the motion, watch when they start the motion. Just let the motion start, and you'll get a tail. Right there, you got your tail. He gave it away. Stop right there. His butt is to the sideline. Now, every offensive coordinator in America and in the quarterback, and everybody knows they are in quarters over there. So the quarters beater is all dependent on what this safety does. If this safety doesn't bail, I've got the deep post. And I never, ever, ever liked butt to the sideline. But the motion forced them into that. Because I would rather him play head up and carry it. Once he's gone 15 yards, it's man, guys. It's man. That's
it. That's pattern reading. Yep.
But with his butt to the sideline, he's giving him the inside, and he has no inside help. And he just runs away from him. And I'll say this. If you look at if we're truly running halves on that backside, the backside safety should help you there if he's in halves. He's got middle of the field to his side. And he had no deep threat to his side, but that's a whole nother you got to work that a lot. But I don't like the butt of the sideline, and our eyes have got to get better. That is really the bad, and we've been bad at it for weeks. We just ran into a guy that could get it done. So I don't like our starting slow. And the ugly is we didn't finish well. I mean, we had them on the ropes. We got the lead. We made them look really stupid before that last offensive series, and we just didn't finish after we gave the ball back to them. And we really struggled with the speed-up offense, getting lined up. The other thing is Elko and those guys on blitz packages. Elko loves the overload blitz. We showed them way too early, and I agree. The zone runs right into them, and they gashed us on that last series. We were stuff way too early because they had rushed us earlier. We've got to be disciplined about cannot show it early. If we can keep from showing it early, then that's when they come wide open. They don't check to the zone run, those type of things. So that was the ugly for me. we look spent in overtime. The guys played hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about physically. They were just spent from trying to come to having to get stops in the middle of the game. We were just.
It's hard when you go to overtime after you had to come back from 21-0.
100%.
No doubt. It's tough.
It plays in your favor, or it starts to hurt you.
Mark, I wanted to play this clip here because one of the things that, and I got a graphic and some stats to show you guys that's going to be alarming, but it's also going to be encouraging. It's going to be both. But his defense, Coach Elko's defense, I promise you guys, I'm not trying to rip off. Not trying to bring trauma into our podcast. Elko's defense is like the actual good version of Jimbo's offense in that it is complicated. He's demanding a lot out of every position.
Yes.
And it may take a season of reps before you're really comfortable and doing it well. Things like showing blitzes early. That's something that's players who know what to do, but not exactly the how and why yet. You know what I mean? Like they're on that what am I doing? Where do I need to line up? Where am I hitting? But the how and the why where you've mastered it, those are signs that, to me, of it not quite being there. To being suckered into showing it early by the clap and all that like they do. And I also wanted to talk about we lose contain a lot, and I know he demands a lot out of his defensive linemen, and the defensive line is super talented, right? Like they are, but there are times, like on this clip here, where there is no C-gap, there's no C-gap contain now. I don't know who it's designed to be. I just know somebody's supposed to be there.
Well, I can tell you, look where Scorton goes, and I said this earlier in the year, you can go back to my podcast. Our defensive ends going inside on pass is going to get us in trouble.
Yep.
And
that's what I wanted you to say again.
I mean,
you to say again.
I've seen it all year long, and a lot of times Scorton beats that guy and tackles the quarterback.
Yes.
But that's a false. I don't know what the word is that we used to use. It's fool's gold.
Yes.
You win, and I've coached defensive ends. You gotta get the sack, and you go, dude, you got a container out there, and he's like, Coach, why are you getting on to me? Because of this stuff right here. And so that's just he knows he's got outside, but he says, oh, there's a big window. It's fool's gold. It's fool's gold. He beats him. He just hammers him back inside. Quarterback gets out of the pocket. That's one thing I'm really. Look, I hope the MRI was clear. I really want to face the quarterback from that other school that can't get out of the pocket as well. And he still can, but he's going to be in trouble if he doesn't, because that's where people have hurt us, is when our defensive ends. And there's way more on film, Seth.
Yeah. I wanted to show that because it's a misnomer that and don't get me wrong, our secondary got burned on the quarters beater. Our secondary got burned on the double move that Des Ricks gave up the big catch on. But there is some issues up front with gap integrity that happen, and they get lost because the casual fan don't see those things, right? I wanted to point it out that the symbiotic relationship that the secondary has with the front is very important. And that play probably don't happen if he maintains his gap integrity, collapses the pocket in on Peyton Thorne. He's not going to see that guy, breaking back up. That was a heck of a throw. He's probably not making that throw with a tackle right in his grill. You know what I mean? A tackle getting pushed into his grill.
No.
So it's definitely some issues that you see where every now and then I think Scorton is just as bad as any of them about playing outside of the scheme. And that causes explosive plays to happen. And that's what I'm showing you up here. You look back at Elko's defenses when he was at A&M, right? And I know Elko's defensive, but the big play was a problem early. Now, I will say this. The personnel is much better now than he took over in 2017. It had to be rebuilt, right? Like the Sumlin era ended with as bad of a personnel setup on defense as we've had since Elko took over the defense for Coach Fisher. And you saw a constant progression, and then it really was like a light flip swift in 2020 and 2021. You'll see that they went to being elite. They went to being elite at permitting the big play. Now, do I think it's going to take that long? Because some of you may be looking at that graphic going, we can't wait till 2028 or 9 to flip from being number 1, 9 or 2. Well, this was what it looked like at Duke, okay? When he took over the Duke team as a head coach, his first year there, the big play was still an issue. But look what happened in year 2. They went from worst to first in one calendar year. And so with the transfer portal, with the modern day way of doing things and building things, I expect that to not be an issue long. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if it happens this year. So
I'll say this. when you run the kind of schemes that Elko does, because I will say this, at Carthage, I know it's just high school football, but I was also at a Division I college at one point, and so I know what. And then even though that was the 90s, these are high-level schemes, and they require a lot that what offenses require. And now that these offenses read things, motion affects it. That guy runs in motion, and your rules change on a dime, and you've got to know my rules just changed, and now I'm this, and this is what I'm looking for, and what it takes to coach it. It's a lot of half line. If you're talking about O-line, D-line work, you're going to spring a lot of half line stuff. And then in the secondary, you play a lot of what's called half field. Instead of just true 7-on-7, you give them reps on that half field stuff over and over till they learn that stuff to where and Seth, you were saying, till they get it, till they have, it's called savvy. They know the system so well, they've seen it, they're playing fast, and they have some savvy about what the scheme is trying to do. And then that's when those numbers change like that. And I think I've said it all year watching this defense. We're a spring away from a true Elko defense. Because we're training a defensive coordinator too. I'm not trying to take anything away from Bateman.
No, you're 100% correct. Yeah.
He knows a lot of defense, but to get and to understand what Elko wants out of this group, he needs another spring. Players need another spring. It's only going to get better. And I know it gets better week to week too. That's the other thing. Don't hang your head. We've gotten better at things as things have been exposed. We've gotten better the following week. So that's just a plus.
Yeah, he said it in his presser too. His presser is, he said that our objective is to get the quarterback to beat us by throwing it to his second and third read. And how do you do that? You do that through disguising coverage, confusing the quarterback pre and mainly post snap. And like you said, if we tip our hand, it's just lots of little things where you can tell, like you said, that savviness isn't quite there yet, that it takes, and don't get me wrong, it's not like it'll happen in bunches and then we have to start over. Those cats that come in and play, if you got a room full of savvy guys who are starting, the savviness rubs off on the younger players or the transfer kids way faster than it does if it's just coming from the coaches. And so anyway, yeah, I think you're exactly right, Mark. Like, I expect it to be like Duke, where we're going to go from, don't remember those explosive plays we allowed a lot last year? That's not going to happen anymore. I don't know if we'll go to number one overall. Certainly wouldn't put it past Coach Elko, because I know he's not one to rest on his laurels either and say, well, we are who we are. That's not how he rolls it all.
No. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to tell you this week, because we've had a lot of information, we're going to skip the prediction versus reality on this one. Let's just say all three of us got it wrong, unfortunately.
Way wrong. Yeah.
And we're going to move on because we know how big this game is. So we got the T-Sips coming up from Austin, and they're 10-1 on the year, 6-1 in conference. I don't know. If I was Oklahoma, I'd be trying to figure out how they got their schedule and Texas got theirs, but it is what it is. So I'll go into a little bit on their defense versus our offense. I think their defense is good. I do think they can be run on. If you looked at the Kentucky game, I don't know why Kentucky goes away from the running game. If you look at just the run plays to the running backs, they were averaging 4 yards a carry. And if I'm Kentucky and I know that I don't have a great offense, I've got a pretty decent defense, I'm going to pound the rock and keep that offense off the field. Okay? I don't know. That's just what I would have done, but that's not what they did. I think they're very, very good in the secondary. I think their linebackers are really stinking good. That Anthony Hill kid that we had committed to us for a while is probably the best linebacker I've watched film on all year. That kid is
I think it's common knowledge now, but in case you didn't know, the story behind why Anthony Hill really didn't commit here is he had a couple, he had family members on both sides. He had some wanting him at A&M, some wanting him at Texas. And his official visit was such a cluster here. They were left in a parking lot for an hour or two waiting on a ride. I mean, it was just one thing after another, like lack of organization and stuff. That, can you imagine something like that happening under Elko? And if it did, he would probably burn the entire Brock complex to the ground. Like, so that's the difference. You know what I mean? Like, think about Anthony Hill dropped into our defense. Anyway, sorry, I just had to put that in there. It's frustrating.
Oh, that's crazy. But in my opinion, he's the best linebacker we've seen all year. Really, their D-line's average to me, man. Their D-line is average. They've got the freshman kid Simmons outside.
I would say above average, but it's not It's not some of the stuff we've seen in South Carolina and
No. And don't get me wrong, the Simmons kid, the freshman kid from Duncanville on the outside, that kid's special. I don't want to mess with him on third down and long. But I think if we can be effective on the ground and run the ball and keep ourselves out of those third and longs, I think we can do some really good things. So they're multiple up front. They run some under 3 down, but they like to base have a 4-2-5 with that nickel, and they like to send Anthony. That kid's really special. Like I said, the players to watch I got, you got Anthony Hill. He's a junior. Hopefully he goes to the NFL after this year, please.
Please.
Somehow they left him off the Buckus Award list, finalist. I'm sorry. Some of these people, between the committee and what they're putting on these 12-team playoffs and who idiots. I mean, I'm an Aggie fan, love Aggies, but that kid's special. He should be on there.
Absolutely.
He's leading the team with 79 tackles. He's also leading the team in tackles for a loss with 15. He's also leading the team with sacks with 7.5. He's also leading the team with 4 forced fumbles. So to say he is a difference maker on that defense is an understatement. I mentioned the freshman kid. He's the only one that stood out to me on film watching. He's quick off the edge. I'd hate to see him after a couple of years in a college weight room. Right now, he's still kind of undersized. He's effective. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he shouldn't be on the field, but he's going to be really, really good after a couple of years in a weight room and a nutrition program. And then in the secondary, they got athletes all across the board back there. Their leader back there is cornerback Ja'Day Brown, who has 4 interceptions. So their defense is good. Don't get me wrong, but I think you can help your cause if you can establish the run. We have got to be physical up front. I don't know how they did it. I just know how we did it at Carthage, and I know we would be in the film room right now, and Smitty, who's the head coach up in Dallas, would be just hammering those kids about how soft they were. Just, man, how soft are you? How soft are you? And just beating it in their head until they didn't want to hear that crap anymore, and they came out ready to hit somebody. So that's what I'm hoping's happening. We've got to be physical up front. I think our quarterback's plenty talented enough to win this game. He's shown that. I don't have any doubt. He's not a Heisman winner this year, but he is plenty good enough to lead this team to wins over the next 2 weeks and get us in the playoffs. But we have got to be more physical up front. So that,
man, I'll say this, in going back and watching some Texas film, I've seen times when they run the 4-2-5 and run that zone package behind it. I haven't seen teams in years that were that good at it. Their back end, their ability to match routes and be where they're supposed to be and be in throwing lanes.
Oh, it's that's what I'm saying. I watched one clip and it was early in the game.
Talented.
Kentucky ran a post with a dig, and the backside cornerback should have Barron. It would have been pick number 5 for him. Comes across from the other side of the field and dives in front and almost picks it off. I mean, their back end's special. I don't have any doubt about that, but I think we can't get to them if we'll just get physical and commit to the run game. I'd love to, I've said it 15 times on this podcast today, I would love to see some more of that jet sweep with the quarterback read and give it on the jet son to keep that linebacker honest. If he doesn't want to follow that jet, give it to him and let him go. There's a kid, number 2, Bussy, that could probably do some special things with it if you give it to him. So,
hey, Matt, you know how you affect those runners in zones, those guys that get to zones that tip balls that are not really, that they shouldn't be a player in that. You run the ball and you make them come up and support the run over and over, and then you dump it behind them. They're a little slow.
They can't run that zone behind it if you're gashing them on the run. You're exactly right.
Arkansas ran the ball on them.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my sense. You got anything on the offense first?
No, you nailed it. If we're going to win this game, it's going to be on the ground, and we're going to maybe burn a safety if we, but we can't go out and think we're going to come out. I mean, I know Reed looked better throwing the ball. We're not going to come out and be some air raid version of ourselves. I will say that I would like to see, given Klein hasn't shown a lot of gimmicks yet. I think the only gimmick I've seen all year has been the sprint out pass that we dropped, and it ain't even really a gimmick. And so, if you look through their explosive plays, there's a couple of gimmicks that's gotten them this year, tied in, delays off of a flea flicker and stuff like that. So I would love to see at least one or two of those if needed. Right situation, right time. If he's got some and we've been working them all year, then, they're still in the bag. We haven't
That's
used a
right.
single one yet. So I like that. I like if you've got one that's been working all year. Like now's the time we get the right situation.
That's right.
Anyway.
All right, guys, tell us about their offense versus our defense, because Seth's joined the dark side. He's all in black, dude. I mean, look at it. Good grief, man. That's what happens when you've coached at a super small school, Mark. He's had to coach both sides. He doesn't know.
Coach, my last 2 years at Pine Tree working for Coach Huey Chancellor, we were 5A football, but he brought that mentality with him from Belleville, which was a 4A D2 school back then. And we did. I coached safeties and running backs, and that was a long 2 years. There was no. I mean, as soon as you have a turnover happen, and it's like you're right back to coaching. It's like light switch on, off. It was crazy. Anyway,
Hey, Seth, just break this to you, but there's a reason I have 5 rings, and one of those is sometimes I coached a guy 4 and that lives with me basically for a year. By the time he gets around 4 of the playoffs, the guy is very savvy because he's just looking at their offense. Their offense is good. They're very talented. I think their backs are not these big bruising SEC backs. They're more of these. They're quick. They're very quick. They have a good O-line that gives them big holes, and they can run through those big holes, and they are quick. They are not these bruising backs that we've seen, though. Now, they may have, I know they had a starter get hurt in like the fall or whatever before the season started, but their O-line is really good. They're good at what they do. I don't know how physical they are. I questioned that, Matt, when I watched film against them. They're good. They do all the blocks. They pick up when people run the stunts on them, they're very good at passing it off. They
ran for 29 yards against Georgia at home.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how physical they are.
I think they have adopted the mentality of that university. We're going to look real pretty, but we're not going to hit you in the mouth.
No, I thought you were going to say something else, but
I'm going to keep it PG. I'm going to keep it PG.
So, yeah, their O-line is good. Their quarterback, he kind of has an ankle injury, but he's not real. He's been okay knowing when to get out of the pocket, when to run. He's done a really good job of that. He throws the 2 ball as well as anybody in the world. I promise you, if he goes to the NFL, it'll be because of the way he throws the 2 ball. He threw a really great.
Absolutely. Yep.
Kentucky little drop pass right there, perfect.
Yep.
But he's not throwing the deep ball well. If you go back to Ewers when they beat Alabama before, he threw the deep ball really well. He's not throwing it well. He's not putting it where it's supposed to be. Like, the big 8, Matt, supposed to be 42 yards on the hash, right?
Yep.
Like that ball is 7 yards outside the hash when he throws it right now. His receivers have adjusted at times and made him look good, but he's not throwing it well. So they have great receivers. He does throw the ball well, but everything he's doing, if you look at what he's doing, everything is from that 7 to 12 yards. Those are the routes he's killing people on. They throw the deep ball just to open those things up. So our ability to match routes down below. So I think we'll see some 2-man out of Elko this week, but we got to be careful with it because of all the motion and change of direction pass plays that he has built into his system, which are really hard. We're going to have to really mix up our coverages and things on stuff of those, but we need to keep him in the pocket. If we can keep him in the pocket and get people in his face, he's bound to give the ball back. He gets his arm hit against Kentucky and then backs the ball to another Kentucky player who takes it back. He does not do well right now. I don't know what it is. He looks like a different kid from when he came in. He just doesn't look like he has the confidence that he did when he first came in. It's been taken away from him a little bit, so I think he's prone to some turnovers, and we are going to have to turn them over. It is a must. We talk about wanting turnovers each week. Hey, win the turnover battle. Let's do some coach speak. No, this is a must. We've got to turn them over this week. That is a must.
Hey, Seth, we've talked about this before. What's the coach's name up there at Vanderbilt?
Clark Lee.
Clark Lee. You think Lee and Elko spending time on the phone this week?
Absolutely.
If there wasn't a phone call, I know there was an email exchange or two, at least.
Well, one other player I want to talk about because I think he's the best offensive weapon they have is their tight end.
Gunnar Helm.
He's good.
Yeah, Gunnar
Exactly.
Helm.
He's the best player they'll have on offense, and they get him the ball in a lot of ways. They threw him the little seam shot, just a perfect little dime. Then they come back and run tight end screen. They go motion everything this way, dump the tight end screen back. It's a play we ran in Carthage, Matt. And he's good. He's their best player. So we're going to have some answers for the tight end. And obviously, if you look at our weaknesses have been back out. And Sark is good, and they have the right kind of backs to put you in a bind, to run some rail stuff out of the backfield and some seam shots out of the backfield. And we're going to have to be, I don't worry about the seam shot as much because I think York and those guys can handle that. But the one where they swing him wide, we're going to have to be a lot better and have better answers. I think you will see some halves play as well as some two-man just to get those corners with certain motions to trigger to what we used to call trap. So we're in quarters and we get motion we have two receivers and we're in quarters. Motion a third guy towards us, it's an automatic trap. That corner's going to sit down, sink inside, and he's going to take whatever comes that way, and the safety's going to help him over the top. That is going to have to be in the scheme against Sark. So,
yep,
we're going to have to mix the looks. We're going to have to do a better job with where we show our blitz packages and not let them check out of it. We'll say the last thing that after watching all this film, we are going to have to be disciplined. It is a rivalry game. And let me tell you, it's almost as if the Texas players are coached. They instigate a lot of crap at the end of plays. Kentucky had them stopped at 14-7. Has them stopped, they're going to kick a field goal. And one of the players punches their player, he punches back. Well, guess who got the penalty? The Kentucky player did, and they end up scoring a touchdown. We're going to have to, it's a rivalry game. You're going to see we're going to have to be the instigators like we were against LSU. I thought we instigated a lot of crap against LSU, and I think it got them in trouble. We're going to have to know what we want to do. Do we want to be the guys that don't react? Or are we going to be the guys that instigate and let them get the penalty? But we're going to have to be, it's going to have to be talked about during the week, because their players are some of the most cocky people I have ever seen.
They wear orange, Mark. They wear orange.
Look, there were years when
there's two people that wear orange: cocky suckers from Austin and people in prison. Okay.
Well, it's gonna have
and there's
to be
not a whole lot of difference between the two.
With our record, with bad penalties.
Yeah, I know.
To be addressed.
Yeah. So, hey, I wanted to echo. I'm going to take this from the approach of an offensive guy who does have some coaching defense background, but watching offenses like Sarkisian's offense, what does it do well? What it does well is it does misdirection as good as any offense in college football. Matter of fact, I wish we did as much as he does. And the screen game. So this is why, like, if you look to it, there's not a more quarterback friendly system out there for, like, this is why the Mannings chose Texas. It wasn't because they grew up Longhorn fans. It was because they wanted Arch to be in a system that was going to make his numbers look really good for the best bang for your buck, right? Like, we weren't going to ask him to throw the 21-yard out route like it's in the NFL. And so you look right there, they lead the conference in 11 games played. They have 19, they nearly have 2,000 yards of yards after catch. We have 1,000. They have doubled us up in yak, okay? How do you do that? You do that through easy throws to great athletes in space. Yes, and you do it through the screen game. And so it requires massive, massive discipline, which if you watch the Auburn game, scares you to death. Okay, it really does. But sometimes off of a game like that, you get that kind of film and you're pounding it into Scorton's head. Can't have this. You know what I mean? Like, you're pounding it into Dalton Brooks' head. You see what's going to happen on November 3rd if you do the exact same thing? So if we can improve that discipline, not let the gimmick, not let the motion pull us away, take us out of our job. If you do your job and you play with discipline, you can, when you tackle that screen for a +6 instead of a +60, then you get Sark. He's a great, here's another thing Sark is good at. He's good at screen game, misdirection, and scripting. And if you can keep those screens from busting you and that misdirection from busting you, he's off script. All right. And he does not call a great game off script. Look back at the semifinal game last year versus Washington. There were some many head scratchers in that fourth quarter. So if you can not let the script bust you, you play disciplined, then and you make him play 4 quarters where he don't get out to an early lead, he's out of his bag at that point. He's out of his comfort zone at that point, if that makes sense. And it requires a massive amount of discipline. Yeah.
That I want to piggyback what you said, because this was in my notes, was we have to start well against the script.
You can't let him script you.
Even if
That's
you
right.
look at what they did against Kentucky, you look at that score, but then you go back and watch the game, and the Texas offense struggled mightily after the script was
That's
gone.
not the one that makes me as mad. Go watch the Arkansas game.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Vanderbilt. But we have to be really good in the first quarter on defense. We need to get them off the field 2 or 3 times, and even if they score a touchdown, if it's 7-0 with 11 minutes to go in the second quarter, I feel good about our chances. Honestly.
Same. Yeah, I agree.
Because
All right.
I think that puts them in a bind.
So let's, Seth, you got anything else? You ready to move on to predictions, boss?
Let's do it. Let's move on. That's it.
All right,
Discipline.
so first of all,
Discipline.
I want to go on this podcast and tell y'all, look, if you're an A&M fan, you graduated from A&M, you all hate Texas. I grew up in Austin. I grew up in Travis County around those freaking idiots.
That's what's wrong with you.
Okay, I moved out of there as soon as I could afford to pay my own rent. I was gone. Okay,
Yeah.
but I can't stand them. And I got buddies texting me, guys I went to high school with, running their mouths, and they don't know, it's 10 yards for a first down. But, it's all right. So my prediction on this game, I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be close. As much as I hate those guys, I've told you what I think about that linebacker. I agree with you, Brian. I think the quarterback can drop a ball as well as anybody in the SEC. They got athletes on the outside. It's going to be close. I'm going to go 34-31 on this one. Okay? My player of the game, and I think we could pick a lot of guys, but mine is going to be the 12th man. I know you two sorry suckers have a ticket, and I'm jealous as all get out, but I'm not going to be there. But I'm willing to bet you that there's going to be over 110,000 people in that stadium. I thought it was nuts the night me and Seth were at the LSU game, and I think this is going to be on a level never seen before. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I think the fans are going to be there. They're going to be loud. It's going to be ridiculous. And so I say A&M wins 34-31, and the 12th man's going to be the player of the game. Mark, what you got?
Well, I'm just going to say I do have a ticket, and I am going because I'm a 3%er like Matt.
Hey, if anybody's listening to this podcast and they want to adopt a son for a game, I will drive down. I will even show up with some adult cold beverages for you. I'll do whatever. So you just let me know.
So I will say this will be the first time I've been to a TU Texas game since 1987, back when we used to go to all the games, and that was on Thanksgiving night. And that was Bucky's freshman year. They brought him in late. He ran the option, ran it down Texas' throat, won 2013. Sent us to the Cotton Bowl because the winner of that game was going to the Cotton Bowl that year. Ended up beating Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl, just to relive some things. So I'm going to be back in the house. It was a record attendance that night, so I'm hoping for a record attendance, and I'm hoping my presence bring back that magic, and we have another young quarterback lead us to victory late. I had 27-24, some late game Aggie magic. My defensive player of the game, I think, is going to be BJ Mays. I think somebody's going to help him, but he always seems to be in the right place at the right time when they do. And I think he's going to have a big play. And I will say this, but I think the overall player of the game, we've been setting it up all year. We've been crying for it all year, but I think it's all been a setup. I think our quarter halves was set up for Sark too, just so you know. But I think our setup is this guy's going to go off, and he's going to put his name on the national map, and his name is Terry Bussey from Timpson, Texas. And one of them East Texas guys is about to go off, and he's going to be the player of the game.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. Go ahead, Seth.
All right. I wanted to go with a bigger gap, but I'm going to go with, we have averaged 31 points a game, and we're going to win 31-30. It's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be 4 quarters. I will say this. I am ready. This has been one of the worst sports moments of my life. The last game I went to was 2011. We went with my family. My mom gave us this for Thanksgiving. She said, hey, I want the whole family to go to the last Texas game together for Thanksgiving, which sounds good on paper until it's actually time to go do it. And you're like, oh, we're going to all be together, and my family's going to see me act like this at the game. This ain't good. Anyway, so we go to the game, and there's a large group of us, 20 plus, Well, back then, if you bought 20 plus tickets, they sat you up there in that upper corner where the visiting fans are. So we are I'm not the middle, we're at the front bottom of the Texas group, loud. And then we get the ridiculous call to extend their drive. Case McCoy rumbles down the field like a moron for 40 yards, and then Tucker. And it was an absolute nightmare. My family being so large and that being such a heavily attended game, the plan was in the pregame was that, hey, after the game ends, whole family's there. We'll take pictures, we'll just wait for the place to clear out, and then we could help some of my family members down who would need help and not need to be in the tunnel. And so we had to wait. We had to sit there. I sat there for probably 30 minutes while all the Texas fans took selfies in front of the scoreboard and everything. And I have had this blood-boiling rage inside of me ever since then. I made a huge buffoon of myself in the parking lot in front of my mom when she asked if we wanted to go get some food. And I said, "What?" I said in no short terms, I'm just ready for this day to end. Okay, I'm going to the room and I'm going to bed if I can finally go to sleep. And it was awkwardly silent. And thank God my nephew, Colton Traylor, offensive line coach at Gilmer right now, or one of the coaches at Gilmer, he said, "Yeah, what's that?" And at the time, he was a student. He was in school there. So it was bad. And so I'm ready to be hurt again. That's why we do this. This is why this is my hobby. People jump out of airplanes. People go gamble. Hey, man, this is what I like to do to get my emotional up and down for fun out of. I wasn't missing this. I just got to say, I was worried about those ticket prices, and I just decided, no, not missing it. In fact, it's been 13 years in the making off that nightmare. So I'm ready to go see one way or the other. I'm going to be there again, and I'm going to feel what it feels like to beat them, because I was also a student during the 05 year, just 04, 05, 06 year. So I've had a rough go of it as a fan, a student, and then, an Aggie then. But yeah, my player of the game, I think, is going to be Scooby, just because he's really athletic, and I think he's got the speed to go tackle that running back. I think he's got the speed to if he can get through on a blitz like he did versus Sellers at South Carolina, he can really cause a havoc. Maybe a strip sack, or something like that. So I'm going with Scooby just because I also think he has a lot to prove. I know he's played really well, but he's getting progressively better. But, coming over from Florida, he was very unheralded. And that guy, I think he plays with that chip on his shoulder of, hey, you know what, doubt me more. And so, I just, the bigger the stage gets, I just want that kid to be good. And I think he's going to have a big one. And he's athletic enough to do it. And then I think our offensive player of the game kind of playing on the same factor. It'll be his senior year. He's a dog. I know he may not always do the right thing. Is Ja'Day Walker. I mean, him catching that shallow mesh route and bulldozing his way into the end zone, that was like those types of emotions. The LSU game, I know he knocked the kid out, and I wish he hadn't have done that. But like those types of things, like he's a dog. And in these games, you want dogs playing for you. And I think Ja'Day's going to have a big catch, big run. He's going to do something on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to get Kyle Field lit. So anyway, that was my two, 31-30.
I think on both sides, there's a bunch of kids that don't really understand how this game is. But I bet you by the end of this game, going into next year, there's not going to be any doubt how much they dislike each other. So
that's right. That's right.
I want to wish this for you. So in '87, we beat them, and Bucky scores late. And when the game was over, we were in the first row of the second deck on the student side because my sister was a student there. And so we had those old tunnels that you had to walk down, those big circles. It took us 45 minutes to get from the second deck to the front deck. So we had to stop and saw Archie's horns off because everybody was singing the song.
That's so bad.
And we got to walk across campus after the game, and there was everywhere.
I hope that we get the win, and I'm glad y'all are going to be there. But what will make me happy is if we get the win, and then I get a text from both y'all that you have a flat tire after the game. That will make me, because we got the win. And
but I'll be able to walk to Caldwell or wherever I need to go afterwards.
Down with a 12-man tile. I know the Aggie Nation will have my back.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening again, man. It's been fun. And let's see where we can go this week. Hopefully we can do another podcast next week to celebrate going to SEC championships.
Let's do it.
Gig 'em, and see y'all next week, guys.
Thanks and gig 'em, guys. Thanks and gig 'em.
Tracy Amigos, former football coaches turned insurance agents, talk about Texas Aggie football.